He was one of the Me Too movement's biggest journalistic casualties. Back in 2017, Mark Halperin's career went up in smoke after multiple women accused him of sexual misconduct. Now, Halperin has a new book on the 2020 presidential race, but critics say he is exactly the wrong person to write about it.
Sarah Palin, like George Bush, Bill Clinton, is an incredibly polarizing figure.
Not too long ago, Mark Halperin was an election coverage fixture.
The press is very sympathetic to the Obama narrative on Bain and not all that sympathetic to Governor Romney.
But then at least a dozen women who'd worked with Halperin accused him of sexually harassing or assaulting them.
Propositioning them for sex, making unwanted sexual advances, and pressing himself against them.
He sort of lunged at me, kissed me, touched me inappropriately.
Halperin quickly became a pariah, losing his TV gig, an HBO project, and a prior book deal. Now, though, he's poised to hit the shelves again in How to Beat Trump, slated for publication this November. Publisher Judith Regan says she doesn't condone Halperin's behavior, but adds in a statement,
I have also lived long enough to believe in the power of forgiveness, second chances, and offering a human being a path forward to redemption.
Critics aren't buying it, including the Washington Post's Monica Hesse, who writes, this election, with a record number of female candidates, is historic. Can we trust Halperin, a man who allegedly rubbed his private parts on women, to be a clear-eyed scribe for this moment in history? Of course, Halperin will also be weighing in on the president. And when Trump was accused of sexual misconduct during the last campaign, Halperin seemed skeptical.
If the Democratic nominee for president had 6 or 7 media organizations all on one night coming forward, people would say, well, that's suspicious.
A take that now requires a heck of a disclaimer. For what it's worth, in that exchange with John Heilemann, his former writing partner, after Halperin waxed skeptical, Heilemann got really ticked off and said the reason multiple news organizations are coming forward is because President Trump stood up there and said, you know, if you have any claims to make about me, go ahead and make them. So there was some friction there. To me, it seems that there's the question of whether Mark Halperin is appropriately contrite, which Callie tackled a couple weeks ago, and I think a case can be made that he is not. Right. He said in one of his apologies, you know, I'm not perfect. I'm happy to be criticized by people who are, which is sort of a passive-aggressive non-apology. But then there's the question of whether he is compromised when it comes to the subject matter at hand. And that's, I think, the strongest argument for not giving him a platform. So far, it seems like he's not going to get much one. CBS, NBC, ABC, and CNN, if I'm reading my notes correctly, have all said that they're not going to let him plug his book on their show. What do you think?
I mean, I don't know. When I saw this story, I thought of the Jeffrey Epstein case, not because I want to claim there's any equivalence in terms of their alleged crimes, but because this is a situation where here's somebody who is in the circle and a bunch of people who know him and who have known him, from Joe Smirkonich to Michael Smirkonich, sorry, to Mika Brzezinski. That's where the Joe got into my head.
Oh, right.
You know, they know him. They've been buddies with him. He's part of that whole Washington media scene. And so, of course, they're going to continue to give him the time of day. They're probably having drinks with him at night, and yeah, they're going to let him on the show, and yeah, they're going to bend their own personal rules to let him through. And this is how somebody who is not the only political reporter in the world, and certainly hardly the only person qualified to do a book like this, that's basically just a reported, you know, set of interviews with a bunch of political consultants,
bunch of Democrats who instantly have taken heat for talking with him.
Yeah, this is not necessarily. He seems to have no special expertise that would give him this platform, besides the fact that he knows a bunch of people.
Well, you know, but that's important. He knows a lot of people. He's been doing this for quite a while, writing these inside books and articles on campaigns, and so you know, I'm sure there are a lot of good writers out there and good reporters who could do something on this, but somehow in this Washington bubble that you were referring to, once you get plugged into it, you can come back again for your second book and your third book, and it's almost like there's a certain level of credibility that goes along with that. Now, having said that, I don't condone anything that he was accused of doing, none of that in my argument here today. But I do believe that there has to be, and I brought this up the last time we had this discussion, you know, you say you're sorry, you spend some time quietly away from the limelight. At some point, you have to make a living, right? And you may not like how he, it's a book with female candidates and he's going to be writing about them and he has this past. You may not like that, but it is what he does for a living. And I think at some point, how long must he stay away from writing about politics before he's allowed to come back?
Well, maybe he does have a special expertise. As we used to say when we were kids, it takes one to know one. If this is a guy who is a serial sexual harasser, who better to write about how to beat him than a person who, if you look at the Access Hollywood tape, is self-admitting that he is a sexual harasser.
Do you really think that's what the book's about? Do you really think that's in the book?
I say that only half tongue-in-cheek. Right. Mark Halperin misbehaved. He's a jerk, an unequivocal jerk. I don't think he's sufficiently expressed awareness for what he did or apologies to the women. Would I book him on a show? No, I would not. And I just don't think that he's at a point yet where he should be doing or we should be supporting what he did.
And when is that point, though?
I don't think it's come yet. It would come with his, I think, profound awareness and apology for what he did.
You've got this weird situation where he has apologized for some of what he's done while denying the most grotesque accusations against him. So we don't really know where he's at in terms of coming to terms with what he did. If he had never been accused of sexual harassment, I would be sighing over the prospect of a Mark Halperin book about political strategy. To me, he just represents the most dreary type of inside Washington conventional wisdom. You make a good point, Adam. The book business is a particular thing. And if you can't get booked on shows, if you can't go do an event and sign books for people, there's no value to this. And I'm not sure that he's going to be able to. You read the list of places that won't have him on.
Yeah, you know what? But the buzz, we're talking about it. So the negative buzz around it may get some sales. Yeah. And that's, to your point, that's the reason he keeps writing these books. It may be boring, but people are buying them. And so he'll keep getting the money.